So let's start coding the robot builder class to understand how the builder template works. And we're going to start with an interface, the robot builder interface, which is going to have the methods we're going to use in the robot builder: add start, add get parts, add assemble, add test, add stop, and get robot. And when you call the add start method, it's going to add a start call, and when you call the add get parts method, it's going to add a get parts call to the sequence of method calls that the robot will execute. So here is the way it's going to work. We're going to start coding our cookie robot builder class, implementing the robot builder interface, and we start off in the constructor with a cookie robot buildable object. I'm going to create a new cookie robot buildable object. This is the robot builder, and we're going to create a robot buildable object, and that is the actual robot. That's the configurable robot. That is the robot we're configuring is of the cookie robot buildable class, which we're going to create next and after creating this class. But this is the robot builder, and we're going to start working with a configurable robot, and that is an object of the cookie robot buildable class. So that's the robot we're going to create. That's the robot under construction. We're going to store that in a variable named robot. So we have the cookie robot builder class, and it creates in its constructor a cookie robot buildable object. That is the robot that we are creating. Right now it's a blank robot. We're going to configure it with the start and get parts and so forth method calls in the sequence we're going to be creating so that the robot will do what we want it to do. And now we're going to store in an array list. That's a Java array list. An array list has some of the methods we're going to use for storing items in an array. I'm going to create an array list called actions and create that array list in the constructor. The idea is that we're going to store the actions required by the client code. In other words, get parts, start, and so forth, in what order and how many there are of them, the number there are of them, in the array list, in this actions array list. Then we're going to replay them as needed when the robot is actually created. So this robot builder will store the actions necessary that the client code wants the robot to execute, and in sequence and in order, and we'll store the actions in this array list called actions, and then we're going to build that into the robot, the cookie buildable robot, so that the robot can be configured. So the cookie robot builder has methods add start, add get parts, and so forth. And for example, when the client code calls and wants the robot builder to add a start call, a call to the start method, we're going to add a numeric code to the actions array list. That's going to be a numeric code of 1, and we're going to add a numeric code of 2 to the actions array list for a get parts call, and so forth. So the client code is going to be able to call add start, add get parts, add assemble, and so forth. And when it does, the cookie robot builder is going to store those calls, those required calls, in the actions array list as numbers. So there is number 3, add test as a call to the test method, and that's number 4, and so forth, add stop, and so on. So every time the client code calls add test, for example, it's going to add a number 4 to the array list. Add stop is going to add number 5 to the array list. So the client code could configure how the robot works and what methods it calls and how many times it calls those methods, what order it calls those methods, just by calling add test, add stop, add assemble, and so forth. When it does, we're just going to add these numbers to the array list, as you see there. Okay, and finally we're going to add the get robot method, and after the robot has been entirely configured with its actions, you say robot.load actions. That's going to store the action array list in the robot, and then we're going to return the robot ready for use. So that's how things work, and we have now completed the robot builder, and next we're going to actually create the robot buildable. That is the actual blank robot we're going to be able to configure as the client code wants us to, and this is the object that's going to be returned by the getRobot method. So next up is creating the robot buildable class.